from GC 90.7's Studio A on the campus of Gulf Coast State College. RAPLINE with Emily Balazs.
Today we are going to have a talk with award-winning writer Michael Lister. It's all about his latest book. It's called The Big Hello, and the book has also been made into a play. You can see it right here on the campus of Gulf Coast State College coming up very shortly. We're also going to speak with the co-director and co-producer of the play, Lydia Ferry. She's here as well. So, Michael and Lydia, thanks for joining us on RAPLINE.
Thank you. We're happy to be here.
Great to talk to you both. And first, Michael, let me talk a little bit with Lydia. You are the co-producer of the play and co-director, but you're also a Gulf Coast alumni as well.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yep.
So tell me a little bit about your background and how you got involved with Michael Lister.
Sure. I went to Gulf Coast for a year in 2009 and studied musical theater. And I met Michael through Jason Hedden, who works in the theater department and was in one of his first productions at Tupelo Theater over in Weehawken. And since then, I transferred to University of South Florida, finished my degree in theater, and just recently came back to Panama City, and I'm excited to get kind of into the art world that's brewing here.
And so is this your first time kind of behind the scene as opposed to on stage?
It is, yeah. Most of my experience has been on stage, but it's so much fun to sit back and direct. And I've been telling Michael I learn just as much from trying to teach others as, I would just from doing it myself. So it's cool.
Are there any new challenges or unforeseen things that you're experiencing being behind the scenes as co-producer and director?
It makes you think a little differently. I look more at the big picture than at, just what one character would be doing. So it's a little more stressful, I guess, but also more balanced because you kind of are dealing with all aspects of production. So, but it's been fun so far. I've loved it.
And we'll talk a little bit more about the play in just a minute. But Michael, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say I think the best actors make the best directors. Mm-hmm. I think of someone who knows how to do it, how to perform. They can communicate with the actors in a way that I cannot, and so that's what she brings. A talented actress who has a lot of experience is communicating to our actors with a shorthand, with a language that the actors would understand, and she can help them get to certain places that a lot quicker than, say, someone who's a non-actor could.
And of course, we're talking about the play that goes with your new book, The Big Hello. So tell me about The Big Hello.
Well, it's the third in my Panama City 1940s noir series that features Jimmy Soldier Riley, this hard-boiled detective who is wounded, is missing an arm, and everyone assumes it happened in the war. It did not. It happened before he got a chance to go and serve, and so that's a part of who he is. This is the conclusion of a trilogy that's not going to end the series. It just concludes the story, essentially the essential love story between Lauren and Jimmy. Jimmy and Lauren have this great, epic love that we wondered, would they ever get together? Would it ever work out? And I guess depending on how noir the series is, we'll see if it does or not. But this definitely concludes that part of the story. And we see what happens with them, their story. And then as the series goes on, in the future, Jimmy will have other cases. He and Clip will be doing what they do. Mm-hmm. But it won't be focused as much on Lauren and Jimmy as these three have been.
So explain to us exactly what noir is and what your fascination with noir is.
Well, noir is difficult to define, difficult to describe, and there's a lot of people who disagree about exactly what it is. It began as a film movement. The term film noir was coined by the French when the 1940s movies, the gritty crime movies, after the war, there had been an embargo, our movies didn't leave the country. After the war, we began exporting them again, and when they got to France, they did this retrospective of American cinema, and the French were like, American cinema has changed. There's something going on here. It's very different, and it's gritty. It's more real. It's highly stylized in a way that it never had been before. And so that's classic film noir. What noir is after that is, up for debate. But I will say this, as is often the case, the film that we call film noir in the 40s began in literature in the 30s. 30s and 40s crime literature, Dashiell Hammett and Raymond Chandler and a lot of the Black Mask writers were writing in the pulps. They were writing noir that a decade later maybe it found its way into cinema. And so my approach as someone who loves film and loves film noir but loves literature even more is coming from the literary perspective with a strong influence of film noir.
So what is it, what fascinates you about noir?
Well, I love the style. No matter what you do, and this includes literature, you can do something in a straightforward manner or you can do it artistically. And I like the style of noir. I like the art of you're taking what essentially are B movies and you're elevating them through art, through artistic use of writing, dialogue, through camera techniques, through acting, through the style. And so it's fun. It's very enjoyable. The way the dialogue is, the way the characters are, it's just rich. There's so much to work with. No one had ever done noir in Panama City, in this area. We usually L.A. and New York, even Florida in general, Miami even, Tampa, largely ignored, in the classic film noir period. So I liked bringing that to that style, that sensibility to the Panhandle. Now, I will say this. Noir has a tradition of doomed romanticism. And I think my series sort of challenges that and takes that on. And there's some beliefs by certain characters that maybe they are being played a fool or they're a sap because of their belief in this great love. But because of my own conviction and beliefs and experience, then mine is not about the doomed romanticism so much as actual finding true love.
So does that give us a clue to what happens at the end
Not
of this?
necessarily what happens, but it definitely gives you a clue to where I'm coming from and where Jimmy's coming from.
And let's touch on a couple of the key characters, of course, Jimmy, Lauren, and Clip. Briefly kind of tell me a little bit about those people.
Well, Clip is, to me, a very fascinating character, and the Publisher's Weekly review of The Big Hello says that Clip steals the book. And he does often steal every scene he's in. He is a truly, I think, unique person, and I'm not just saying the character I've created, but I'm saying in film noir, in hard-boiled detective novels, for lack of a better word, sidekick is always a usually sort of out there kind of character, and you can play around with him or her a lot more. With Clip, this is a very smart, very tough African-American man living in the way the world was in this area in the 40s. It would be hard enough. It was hard. Life was hard enough, period. But to be not just African American, but the kind of man he is, makes it even more difficult. He lives by a certain code, and everything comes down to his convictions, his code, and then his relationship to Jimmy. And what they have, they have a similar sensibility, but it's not exact. And the interplay between them is just something that I absolutely love.
So tell me who plays Clip in the play.
We have this amazing actor. We just call him T. T, and he is has come in, and when I first met with him a few months ago to see if he was even interested in doing it, we had a great conversation. And I made certain references to characters in film noir and stuff. And one of the things that impressed me most is the next time we spoke, he had already watched them all and did his research. And so he got it immediately. And he is doing a fantastic job, like all the cast. And we have a really strong cast, really, everybody's doing such a great job. No one better than Alan Walker, who plays Jimmy. He played Jimmy in The Big Goodbye, the original, the very first book and the first play we had here at the college, directed by Jason Hedden. And Alan went on to do all 3 audiobooks, The Big Goodbye, The Big Beyond, and now The Big Hello. And he's starring again as Jimmy Soldier Riley in The Big Hello. Seeing him and T on stage together as Jimmy and Clip is phenomenal. They embody these characters in a way that I just am thrilled about.
And as we're talking about characters, let's touch on the character of Lauren and who she is and who plays her in the play.
You want to take that one?
Sure. Kara Selleck is a phenomenal little actress here. She is a student at Gulf Coast, and she plays all the female roles, including Lauren, in this cast, besides 1 or 2, I think.
Well, we should say that the way we're doing this is as an old-time 40s radio show.
Yes.
And so because of that, you have a small cast, and they're playing multiple parts. So that's why Karis is playing multiple female roles, but primarily her most important job is that of Lauren. So keep on, tell us about Lauren.
Yeah, absolutely. Lauren is just that ideal girl, I dare say, and she is Jimmy's main motivation throughout the entire series. So it's the kind of thing that anyone can relate to, I feel like, and the story is so touching that it makes us care when we're watching whether or not these characters find each other and get what they want. And she's doing a great job with Lauren as well as the other characters that she plays. That's been one of the most challenging aspects of this particular performance, I'd say, is that so many of the roles are being filled by just one actor. So each actor has multiple parts besides Alan, who plays Jimmy, and T, who plays Clip. So our challenge has just been vocal variety and really convincing the audience, if they're at home listening on the radio, that they're hearing all these different people, when in reality we only have 8 actors.
Let me say this real quick. The thing about Jimmy, Clip, and Lauren is these are all wounded people. There's 2 things about them that if you know this, you know everything else. They're wounded, and that is physically, like a lot of people during the war, physically and psychologically, emotionally. And they love one another. If you know that they're wounded, and out of that wound they love one another, you know everything you need to know about them.
And so do you feel as a writer, Michael, that if you have a wounded or a flawed character, that people can identify easier with them?
I really think so.
I think so.
Rumi, my favorite all-time poet and spiritual teacher, says that the wound is the place where the light enters you. A character who has no vulnerabilities not only has no place for the light to enter them, but there's no place for the reader or audience to get in, to enter, to get inside who they are and relate and identify. So yes, I love all of these characters have amazing strengths. They're the kind of people you would want on your side if you were going to war. You would want on your side. They're the kind of, you would want them as friends. Mm-hmm. They'd be fun and interesting to hang out with. But they're also the kind that you can identify with, and when you see their weaknesses, their flaws, or whatever, you can relate to and empathize with, and to a certain degree, be frustrated by or feel sorry for.
And with that, we've talked a lot about the characters and the book and the play coming up. Michael, would you read us a little bit from the Big Hello?
Absolutely. This is from about halfway through the book, and it's when Jimmy is meeting with Lee Perkins, who is not a good guy. When Armando was gone, Perkins stood, walked over behind the bar, and began to mix himself a drink. As he did, I thought about how most of us in the country were suffering, sacrificing for the war, but not Lee Perkins and those like him. They were actually turning a profit, living better than ever before. When he finished fixing his drink, he rejoined me back at the table. "Do you know who I am?" he asked. "I do." "And yet you get me out of the bed in the night in this disrespectful manner? Why?" "No time to do it any other way," I said. And I couldn't have guessed you'd be in bed this early." He smiled. All decent people are, he said. Bit player like you wouldn't understand. I nodded. He was probably right. And, he said. And, I asked. There is more. And I'd do anything to find the woman I'm looking for. Anything, he said? That is interesting. Many a man tosses that around. Anything. I believe it may actually be true of you. No way to know for certain until you get a certain test. But there is more. More? Yes, more. Then I must not know what it is, I said. You are not afraid. That's not true, I said. I know afraid, he said. I deal with it every day. You are not afraid. I am afraid, I said. I will not let it stop me. If a man's fear does not control him, can that man be said to be afraid? Maybe not, I said. You interest me, he said. You're in a hard man's game, but I'm not so sure you're a hard man. A cop told me something like that earlier tonight. He nodded. The day you have Lee Perkins and a cop telling you the same thing, you listen. I shrugged. What? He asked. Doesn't matter, I said. Nothing for it. All right, fella, he said. That may be. And I might be harder than you think. Oh, I think you're plenty hard, he said. I just wonder how deep it goes. I nodded. I'm sure I'll find out soon enough. Undoubtedly. Like to be there when you do. Maybe you will be. We were silent a moment. But I didn't let myself think about what he had said. I couldn't. I can help you with your girl, soldier, he said, but you have to do something for me. What's that? Tell me why a woman is worth all this, he said. I've never loved a woman like that. Explain it to me, fella, and I'll help you out. I'd had women before Lauren, I said. I'd even loved one or two. They were pretty and pretty smart. At least one of them was near perfect. None of them was Lauren. None of them made me know, not just that I'd gladly give up every other woman in the world, but that I had to. The thing is, you don't know what you have until you don't have it. And then, until you have it. Then, you can never not know it again. I might have settled for pretty good, or may even have been one of the lucky stiffs that finds close to perfect, maybe even very close. But once Lauren came into my life, close enough, no matter how close it was, never would be again. I've lost her not once, but twice. If she's alive, I'm going to find her, and I'm not going to lose her again. He nodded and seemed to think about it for a moment.
And that is a reading from The Big Hello. It's the latest novel from author Michael Lister. That book has also been turned into a play, which you can see here on the campus of Gulf Coast State College. Also joining us is the play co-director and co-producer, Lydia Ferry. So, Lydia, tell me about when and where we can see the play and how we can get tickets.
Sure. I think it's your website, correct? I don't want to give information that isn't right. It'll be June 6th and 7th, 7:30, I believe, is curtain, here at the Language and Lit building on Gulf Coast State College campus. So just go to the website for ticket information.
So now that's a different place, Language and Lit building, as opposed to the theater on campus. Was there a reasoning behind that choice?
Well, there's several reasons. Some of it is just purely scheduling of buildings and that kind of thing. But I tell you, I really like that it worked out this way because we are doing a presentation of literature. That's what this comes down to. And so I like that we're in the Language and Lit building. This is the same building that for nearly 15 years now, Lynn Wallace and I have been doing the Gulf Coast Writers Conference. It's the same building we do river readings in. It's the building that most feels like home to me on campus. And so I love that we're doing a presentation of the book in Language and Lit. I think that's cool.
And so now, when you were writing the book, did you have in the back of your mind that you wanted a play to go with it, or how did that all come about?
Well, you know, since Jason adapted The Big Goodbye into a play, in the book its style, again, where it's a presentation of the book, I've wanted to revisit this material. Since I knew Alan Walker, who had played Jimmy so well, was still around and still available, I did have in the back of my mind that if it were at all possible, I would like to do it again. Jason and I actually talked about doing the Big Beyond, and it just the timing and the everything, that it just didn't work out. So, and at that time we had talked about doing it as an old-time radio show, and also so it is coming to fruition with the Big Hello. And I should say that Lydia is doing such a fabulous job as our co-director and co-producer. But we also have my wife, Dawn Lister, is one of our co-producers and working on the set and all kind of stuff. And Aaron Bearden, a local musician, very talented man, is doing our sound design, and the bringing this to life is there's a lot that goes into it, and we have such great people doing these jobs so well that I can't wait until everybody gets to see how really good it is.
And so how large is the cast for the play?
There are 8 actors, I believe. It's pretty small.
And so where are these actors coming from?
All different walks of life, which is the most fun part from a director's standpoint. Some have been schooled in theater, either here at Gulf Coast or elsewhere. Some have done community theater for years, and some have no training at all. So we've all kind of come together and tried to make our own approach, and as Michael kind of mentioned before, find a language that we can all speak, because theater is one of those things that is so subjective that it's hard to pinpoint, especially when we all come from different walks of life and different backgrounds of training. So that's been part of our rehearsal process as well, is just all growing as actors and learning the same sort of process that we can all use together. So.
And we should say that 4 of the 8 were in The Big Goodbye.
Oh, that's
so
right.
We have 4 different actors coming back that were in the first play, which is really cool.
And so this goes out to both of you. What would you say is maybe the most surprising or the most fascinating part that you think the public might find fascinating or surprising about the book and the play?
You want to go first? You want me to?
Well, my favorite thing about putting this book on stage has been adapting that stylistic quality of the 1940s and trying to incorporate the radio type show into what we're presenting to a live audience. So the most interesting element to me is just the throwback element of, the costumes are going to be, period appropriate and really fascinating. And we're even doing like live Foley sound effects as they would for a radio show, but you get to see it in person. Our director's concept has kind of been that the audience will be a 1940s audience that comes into a radio theater to watch the radio actors perform as a kind of behind-the-scenes sort of thing. So I think that's the most fun for me.
Yeah, I would agree that doing it as a radio show. And we're doing it, the Big Goodbye was a play, and you came in and you sat down, and it was the book its style, so it was the characters do their own narration, and they are, very minimalist set. Most everything's done with the text, lighting, and sound. We're taking that same approach, but we're also doing it as if it were a radio show. Every actor has to be around a mic when they're acting. This is interesting, they are actors playing roles in the book or the play. And so that aspect of it gives us so much to work with, and I think makes it so rich. And during the time of these books, radio dramas were the thing. There was no television, and so I went back. Growing up, I used to listen to cassettes of these old radio shows and always loved them. And in preparation for this, went back and listened. And they were so good, and they did so much. And like a book, most of what's happening is in the theater of your mind, and that's really, really cool.
And everything started with radio, and as you mentioned, theater of the mind. And so if you're interested in history or the 40s or noir literature, this is something you really want to come out to see here on campus. Any final thoughts? We've got just a few minutes here before we wrap up. Wanted to give you both an opportunity to get out any final thoughts you want to get out to our audience.
Well, let me say this. I think we should note that every person who purchases a ticket gets a copy of the book.
Oh, very cool.
If you go to my website, michaellister.com, you can order tickets. There's information at thenewsherald.com too, information about the play and how to get tickets. But if you go to my website, you order your ticket, you get a copy of the book. Our presentation takes you to about 3/4 of the book, and then you finish it yourself. You get your copy with the actors' voices, still in your head with the music, the sound effects, with everything, then you take, and that informs your experience of reading the last quarter of the book. And I'm so excited about that.
That's a very cool concept. Lydia?
Me too. That's my favorite part. It is very appropriate to that radio-style theater where it leaves you hanging on a cliffhanger. So those who do see the play will get a rich theater experience and get to go home and conclude the story for themselves. So
Yes.
That's awesome.
Very good. Well, both of you, thanks so much for coming on and telling us about this wonderful play and book. And that is a wrap for this edition of RAPLINE. Want to thank my guests once again, Lydia Ferry, co-director and producer of the play, The Big Hello, and of course, author Michael Lister, author of The Big Hello. And more information, as he said, is on his website, michaellister.com. And RAPLINE is a service at Gulf Coast State College and GC907.org. Remember, if you're thinking of adding a pet to your family, consider the adoption option. I'm Emily Balazs, and have a great day.